So hi everybody and welcome. Wow, 2 classes left. For a while it felt like it was taking a long time, and now it feels like it's going really fast. Yeah, the nature of how things go. So welcome everyone to step 11. Like I say every week, this is one of my favorite steps. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? But isn't that a good thing? So the spiritual principle that I thought of around step 11 and that others have mentioned as well is awareness, the ability to directly know and perceive, to feel or be cognizant of events. More broadly, it's the state of being conscious of something. So awareness, step 11, sought through prayer and meditation, to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So you guys have heard me reference this before, but the journey through the steps is about coming in step 1, where there's a lot of disempowerment. We're powerless, in fact, over a lot of different things. And there's also a lot of unmanageability that often looks like anxiety or sadness or financial instability, difficulty with relationships, difficulty at work. So one of the things I like about step 11 is if we have been painstaking about this process, then by the time we get to step 11, we should start to be able to access knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. So welcome everybody. Come on in. It's no big deal. Come on in, find a place to sit. There you go, Mimi.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. So there's a lot of really good information, as usual, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on step 11. And so we're going to read some of that, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. So on the bottom of page 85 in the big book, it says, they're having fun next door. Makes me want to... Who? Cool. Yeah. Awesome. People are happy for her. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Oh boy. I like definite and valuable suggestions. I find them very helpful. So this next part of the big book actually kind of lays out a recipe for step 11, or a map for doing it daily. So it goes on to say, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. I like that idea too. When I went to bed at night before having some healing in the step works, I went to bed at night and agonized over everything. Had trouble sleeping. Had a lot of vivid, weird dreams. So I like that it says, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. And then we ask some questions. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Hang on, I'm going to make sure I've got this mic on. I do. I think, yeah. It is. It's on smartphone. Technology. God help us all. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, so divorced from self-pity, dishonesty, or self-seeking motives, under these conditions we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision. I love this next one. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. Okay? A surrendered human being is not a struggling human being, even in difficulty, right? We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We may pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, become more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely on it. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful not to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. So that kind of gives us guidelines about what our prayer life is going to look like. We are praying for knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out. In the big book 12 by 12, I think it goes into more, it is in the 12 by 12, more detail, and we'll probably have time to read that, about why we don't pray for specifics. So I'm going to give you an example. When my daughter was in the hospital on life support, and the doctors would not tell me she wasn't going to die, I spent a lot of time in prayer over that week's time. And this might seem a little strange, but I didn't pray for her to be healed or to live, because I didn't know what the right thing really was around that, and I knew that God did. What I asked for is peace, and what I asked for is courage, and what I asked for is that the doctors be led to make good decisions for her, that God kind of watch over that process as well, and that God would help me to show up in that hospital as the woman He would have me be. And as it says in our third step, we do that so that we can bear witness to others of the power of our faith, right? So I think that's a good example of not asking for specifics. One of the days we were at that hospital, I was ever so gently trying to get the doctor again to tell me my daughter was going to be okay. And he looked right at me and he said, "Mrs. Goebel, death is not the worst thing." And I thought, okay, right? Okay. So that's as good of an example in my recent history as I can come up with about being surrendered about what's happening. Difficult things happen to people all of the time, right? God doesn't interfere, but what I want God to do for me is give me enough love and peace that I can do His will, even if difficult things are happening or I'm under a lot of stress. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. Barb, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, you said God doesn't interfere. Do you ever think God does interfere?
Well, that might be a broader conversation. I don't know that I even know the answer to that question, but what I would say is I don't think that God's arbitrary, right? So I have two families. These families both have, let's say they both have a child that's very sick with the exact same kind of leukemia, right? Both families love their child very much and want their child to be okay, right? Both families may be praying for that. One family, the child might live, and the other family, the child might die. Is that really because God loves the other child more? Is it because he feels more warmly to this family than he does to that family? I can't handle that kind of a God, right? I want a God who's unconditional in his love for every human being on the planet, right? And so what looks true to me is that human beings often face great difficulty on the planet, right? Everybody dies of something. People have children who get sick all the time, right? That's not God's punishment or he doesn't test people with difficult circumstances. He gives them what they need to get through it. And I was talking to one of my cousins this week, and we both have kids that are having a little bit of a hard time, and I said to her, when you've got a broken heart, that's where the light gets in the breaks, right? So it's more about being able to do whatever I need to do, regardless of what's happening. And that's my translation of praying only for God's will for us and the power to carry that out. That's kind of what it means to me. Okay? All righty. Let's see if I can remember where I left off. Here's my favorite words. Remember, I thought it was last week, but it's this week. I tell all my sponsees I have 5 favorite words in the big book, and I'm about to read them to you. Everybody ready? Are you on pins and needles? As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. 5 words. Pause when agitated or doubtful. And ask for the right thought or action. Now, what does that mean? It means if I'm upset in any way, agitated, right? If I'm frustrated, irritated, angry, resentful, overtired, not in good shape, and something happens, I don't trust my next brilliant idea about that because I'm agitated. I say, well, okay, this is happening and I feel like I want to do this, but I'm not in great shape here. So I call it, I sit on my hands and bite my tongue. Or I call it, I put my hands at my sides and walk away from those people because bad things are about to happen. Because I'm not in good fit spiritual condition to address a situation that upsets me. Same with doubtful. Not sure what to do? Don't do anything. Right? Retreat. Go back home. Get down on your knees. Do a little writing. Ask God for guidance. Ask God for inspiration. Talk to a friend that you trust. Call your sponsor. Go through a process that's going to prevent you from engaging other human beings in something that could be harmful. Pause when agitated or doubtful. My favorite 5 words in the big book. And I'm not going to say that about any other 5 words, just so you know. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. What? Yeah, we gave that up, right? We're no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, "Thy will be done." We are then in less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works. It really does. We alcoholics, and I think this is true of Al-Anons too, are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in this simple way we have just outlined. But that is not all. And so next week, the entire chapter 7 is all about step 12. The whole chapter is devoted to working with others.
See, I always thought the Al-Anon people were more disciplined.
Well,
Like control, Control?
Control
Isn't
isn't.
that discipline? Oh.
So interesting, if you think about the word discipline, what it literally means, if you look that up in a dictionary that gives you the definition of the root of the word, it actually comes from the same word as disciple, and it means someone who has been taught. That's what discipline means.
Huh.
Someone who has been taught. So I don't equate discipline with control. I think control is fear. Discipline is love, right? It comes from being taught. So I would say they're not the same. Well, I highlighted an awful lot in this chapter 2 on step 11. I guess we'll just see how this unfolds. And then I thought I have some questions I'd just like to ask about prayer and meditation. And then I thought if we still had some time, we might do another 10-minute inventory. So last week we talked about the difference between the 4th step, which is kind of a deep dive into the inventory process, and the 10th step, which is a quick look at what's currently going on. And we did a 10-minute inventory with Thalia last week, and she told me this week she found it enormously helpful. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the rest of the night. So step 11, prayer and meditation are our principal means of conscious contact with God. Okay? That's why it's so important. If you skip over to the next page on 97, it says, those of us who have come to make regular use of prayer would no more do without it than we would refuse air, food, or sunshine, and for the same reason. When we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. And when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally needed support.
What book is that?
Okay, so this is the AA 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Okay? And there might be another one here.
Yeah, there's one over there in the corner.
Cool.
Well,
Yep. Jean scarfed it. And then on the next page, there is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. As we have seen, self-searching is the means by which we bring new vision, action, and grace to bear upon the dark and negative side of our natures. It is a step in the development of that kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yet it is only a step. We will want to go further. And then the next little bit is actually a discussion of the St. Francis prayer, which we talked about last week too. If you have time, it's a wonderful kind of breaking down that prayer into its component parts and talking about it. And then on page 102, it says, now what of prayer? Prayer is the raising of the heart and mind to God. And in this sense, it includes meditation. How may we go about it? And how does it fit in with meditation? Prayer, as commonly understood, is a petition to God. Having opened our channel as best we can, we try to ask for those right things of which we and others are in the greatest need. And we think that the whole range of our needs is well defined by that part of step 11 which says, knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out. A request for this fits into any part of our day. In the morning, we think of the hours to come. This kind of echoes what the Big Book says. Perhaps we think of our day's work and the chances it may afford us to be useful and helpful, or some special problem that it may bring. You know, friends, when I got my first real job, full-time job, after working steps around my money stuff, I got triggered a lot at work, and I think I had the mistaken idea that my job was there to kind of meet my needs, right? And there's some truth to that, right? We work to make money, to take care of ourselves, to live. But it was a real change in attitude for me to understand that if I'm working for a company, I'm there to be of service to that company. I have chosen to be there, right? It's a job that I've chosen. And rather than being focused on my own needs or how I feel or what I want people to do for me, I focus on being of service at work. And as a general rule, that helps me to be grateful for my job, and it helps me to enjoy it. And it was a big kind of switch in attitude for me to look upon work that way. But that's kind of what they're talking about here. How can we be useful and helpful? Possibly today, we see a continuation of a serious and yet unresolved problem left over from yesterday. Our immediate temptation will be to ask for specific solutions to specific problems and for the ability to help other people, as we have already thought they should be helped. In that case, we are asking God to do it our way. Therefore, we ought to consider each request carefully to see what its real merit is. Even so, when making specific requests, it will be well to add to each one of them this qualification: if it be thy will. We ask simply that throughout the day, God place in us the best understanding of his will that we can have for that day, and that we will be given the grace by which to carry it out. So, I don't know. I'm not sure most people look at work that way, right? That we're there to kind of serve the people around us, and we're there to bear witness to the recovery that we have in our relationship with the higher power. And I think when we look at work that way, the problems tend to kind of go away, and our usefulness tends to increase. And for me, as I thought about work that way, and I was grateful for work and I was enjoying it, my ability to make money greatly increased too. Because I wasn't in that, this isn't okay and that's not okay and this person doesn't like me and I don't like the way that boss is doing this and I think this person should be different and this is baloney. Instead of looking at it that way, which is a very fear-based, small way to look at it, I'm like, what do you want me to do here, God? And who do you want me to talk to, and how do you want me to get my work done? Now, that's an ideal. I did a big event a week or so ago, and I had some stress about that. It was pretty minimal. Did it go over okay? Went great. There were some problems. We talked about it afterwards. We all talked about what could have been done different. Some of those problems were on me. They were mistakes that I made. But it was a giant event, and it involved about 200 volunteers over 5 shifts over 3 days. And everybody needed parking, and everybody needed T-shirts, and everybody, needed food, and everybody, needed supplies. And so, what I say about that is, good job. And what can we do better? And it's okay to ask that question. And it's even okay for people to look at me across the table and say, I think this could have been better, and this is how I see it could have gone better for your team. And I need to be okay with that. Mimi, you got something to say?
Oh, I was just going to say a lot of what you're talking about in service work. And also, thinking about everyone should be doing it differently around you. I'm reminded lately of, we have to stop playing God. It just doesn't work. And when I'm always thinking that the boss and the people need to be doing things differently, there I am in that entrapment of playing God.
Right.
So acting in service work actually relieves me of that kind of stress. And it also reminds me of the fact that I don't have power.
Right.
I just don't have
Right.
power to change people or what they're
Yeah.
trying to do.
I had somebody tell me once, put your hand in front of your face. I'm like, all right, got it. Okay, she said, everything you have control of is right on the other side of your hand.
Yeah, step
This. Right? This. That's all, right? And when I'm critical of my boss, and I think they ought to do it different, That's control, and that's fear-based. Here's the other thing I learned about work. I have sort of an attachment to the nonprofit that I work for. I love their mission. I love what they do. But the other thing that my sponsor really helped me to understand when I've written about what's going on at work is sometimes it's okay to let the ball hit the ground, right? So if the universe is always trying to tell us who we are, right, whether we're in love or fear, what we might need to do next, it's doing that for every other person on the planet. And if there's somebody at work that's making poor decisions, that is not doing a great job, it's my job not to interfere with that if it's not my job. Like, it's my job to do my job. And I had some trouble with this. And I finally said, I'm going to stop raising my hand. Right? So if other people aren't doing their jobs well, it could be that what's in the best interest of that organization is that the ball hit the floor, right? Is that there's some failure, or there's some failure in processes, or there's some difficulty around employees, whatever it is, right? I don't interfere with that, because actually that's not in the best interest of the organization. We don't try to make right what should be left alone at work.
But don't you, I don't know, I find the medical field kind of like the military. We had to take orders, whether we liked it or not. You had to follow those orders.
Right.
And same thing with the doctor. If a doctor gives you an order for a certain medicine on a patient, and you don't think it's the right medicine.
Oh, right. That's good, Barb. I get where you're going with that.
Yeah. What
So
do you do?
here's another thing that I learned. I was a little bit against this at first. My boss gets to boss me around.
Yeah.
And when my boss says, I want you to do this, this, and this, I say, okay. All right, I'm going to do my best to do this, this, and this. So it's their job to give me what I need to do my job, but it's my job to do my job to the best of my ability. And if I need something else, or if there's a problem, it's my job to communicate that clearly, but without blame or fault finding, right?
So I could communicate and say, I don't think this would be the best medicine for this.
Well, I think in a situation like that, it would take more of a one-on-one dive into that situation, not sort of a generalization. So, we're talking sort of what the big book says. We talk generally about situations. So if you have a specific situation, that might be a deeper dive, maybe.
Just this reminds me about that part in the book, the role that God has placed me in. And it helps me when I get into little, things like what we're talking about. What is my role that God has placed me in, and what is the role of the other person? And then it's up to me, to know my role. And I've been in that situation that Barb's talking about, but isn't my role to contradict at that very moment? I better pause. I'm not offering suggestions. I've been in that situation. And what's been helping me lately is to figure out what my role is.
Right.
And you said my boss gets to boss me around.
My boss does get to boss me around.
Her role,
right. Right.
And I often don't like how it's happening, but that is the role.
So I was serving two roles for a while in the organization that I work with, and I had a role that it was new, and it was super exciting to me, and I was learning a lot of new stuff, and I was really jazzed about it, and scared too a little bit, because it was kind of a deep dive that I took on. But I had that role, and then I had my other role, which is managing volunteer programs, which I've been doing for 13 years and I'm pretty good at. So they decided that I shouldn't be doing a dual role, and I met with not just my boss, but the boss of the whole organization. And I went in there, I prayed before I went in there, and I kind of put my ego in a little box and put it away. And I prayed before I went in there, and to my surprise, when she said to me, Alice, what do you want to do? I said to her, actually, what do you want me to do? How do you see me being of the most use to the organization, what would you like me to do? And she told me, and it wasn't the position that I had thought that I really wanted. But I was at peace with that because she oversees the whole organization. She's got that responsibility, and I have an important piece to play in that organization. And so I never felt bad about it.
You must have
Again,
really trusted her.
I trust God, Barb.
Well, yeah, but to have someone else make a choice like that for you?
Yeah, it didn't hurt
I
me.
think it's-
Yeah,
yeah,
it didn't
it's
hurt
cool.
me. Yeah, it was good. No regrets.
Okay.
I will tell you that I was attached to doing that other role, and that when I let it go and did what this woman asked me to do, my stress level probably dropped 30 or 40%. So see, sometimes, if we're surrendered and we're asking God, like I asked for God's direction on that meeting. And so had she given me the job I wanted, I would have come out of that meeting and said, thank you, God, thank you. She gave me the job I didn't want, and I came out of that meeting and said, thank you, God. Because what do I know, right? My viewpoint's very limited. Okay. Let's go a little bit farther. Of course, it is reasonable and understandable that the question is often asked, why can't we take a specific and troubling dilemma straight to God and in prayer secure from Him sure and definite answers to our requests? This can be done, but it has hazards. We have seen AAs ask with much earnestness and faith for God's explicit guidance on matters, ranging all the way from a shattering domestic or financial crisis to correcting a minor personal fault, like tardiness. Quite often, however, the thoughts that seem to come from God are not answers at all. They often prove to be well-intentioned, unconscious rationalizations. The AA, or indeed any man who tries to run his life rigidly by that kind of prayer, by this self-serving demand of God for replies, is a particularly disconcerting individual. To any questioning or criticism of his actions, he instantly proffers his reliance upon prayer for guidance in all matters great and small. He may have forgotten the possibility that his own wishful thinking and the human tendency to rationalize have distorted his guidance. With the best of intentions, he tends to force his own will into all sorts of situations and problems with the comfortable assurance that he is acting under God's specific direction. Under such an illusion, he can, of course, create great havoc without the least intending it. So I kind of wanted to talk about this for a minute because, to me, this is where what the big book says about the fellowship being a sufficient substitute it becomes really important. Like when I'm working with a situation and I'm frightened, I can no longer rely on my mind. Even if I'm prayerful, even if my intentions are good, even if I mean well, the fear, anxiety, frustration, anger that I'm in is going to block the sunlight, what the big book calls the sunlight of the Spirit. And I will, left to my own devices, often make choices that are not good. I'll make poor decisions. I'll act in self-will, but I won't know it, right? So when I'm working through something that's particularly hard for me, like I've done several times, and I trust all you guys are or do too, we call, my sponsor and I call it inviting in the committee, right? So I have some people who know me really well. One of them sitting right across from me right now. They know me really well. They know what I'm beautiful at. They know what I have trouble with, right? They know my character defects. They know my character assets. And when I'm not in a great place in trying to make decisions, I make decisions by committee. I ask my people what they think about the decision that I'm making. And I humbly listen carefully.
So that's a good thing to bring the committee in.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could call them your posse, you know,
Gang.
your gang, whatever you want to call them. But I think that there's reason to be very cautious about difficult situations where we are expecting a certain outcome. We want it real bad, right? Like when my daughter was sick like that, if I had been praying for her to survive and be okay and be well and all that stuff, and then she had died, you know, I could have thought that God didn't love me or didn't love her or was ignoring me. But understanding that I simply pray for the things I spoke about earlier and show up the very, very best I can. The very best I can. And our other kids were so sweet to us, and people were very supportive of us that week. We had what we needed to do what we needed to do, which was beautiful. I didn't make any big decisions that week. I didn't decide to move to Alaska, right? Or quit my job, you know.
Or saying, get your hair cut.
Dye my hair purple, right? Oh, that sounds like fun. Okay. And then a little bit further down that page, it says, we discover that we do receive guidance for our lives to just about the extent that we stop making demands upon God to give it to us on order and on our terms. Almost any experienced AA will tell how his affairs have taken remarkable and unexpected turns for the better as he tried to improve his conscious contact with God. He will also report that out of every season of grief or suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy or even unjust, new lessons for living were learned, new resources of courage were uncovered, and finally, inescapably, the conviction came that God does move in mysterious ways his wonders to perform. Perhaps one of the greatest rewards of meditation and prayer is the sense of belonging that comes to us. We no longer live in a completely hostile world. We are no longer lost and frightened and purposeless. The moment we catch even a glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see truth, justice, and love as the real and eternal things of life, we are no longer deeply disturbed by all the seeming evidence to the contrary that surrounds us in purely human affairs. We know that God lovingly watches over us. We know that when we turn to Him, all will be well with us here and hereafter. I think that's really beautiful. The end of that chapter.
What page is that?
That is page 105 at the very bottom, Mary. It's the very last paragraph on the chapter on step 11. So, there we go. What if you're not on step 11 yet? What if you're earlier in the steps? Hang in there.
Don't worry about it.
Hang in there.
Don't look at it.
You'll get there.
Yeah, hang in there. It's coming. It's coming, friends. But I think to discuss kind of these things, even if it's not where you're at, I mean, it's, it builds my faith to talk about these kinds of things. So I have some musical references for you. I had a bunch this week, so I had to whittle. By His Grace is a Van Morrison song. The Gathering of Spirits is Carrie Newcomer. Does anybody know that song? No? You guys should check that one out. It's really, really good. And In My Life by the Beatles. How does that one start? I'm just going to memorize it. So I think if I had the first few lines to it, you'd know which one.
I got the A to Z lyrics.
Cool.
Great.
In my life,
Yeah, In My Life. How does that start, Mamie? Do
it's
you?
all my friends and lovers.
Yes, that one.
There you go.
I know
Yeah.
the tune, but not
Yeah, I can't remember. I memorized it just moments ago, and yet here I stand thinking, how does that song go? Barb's going to look it up for us. And then the Yes of Yes, Carrie Newcomer, that song is actually about praying, so you might enjoy that too.
Interestingly enough, I've done steps with when a sponsor had me start with step 11, even though I was on one.
Wow.
Prayer meditation into my step work right away.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
having, step 11, because it could be helpful in opening my mind to working the steps.
Maybe
So,
that's really beautiful.
you know,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay, here it is. You're going to recognize it as soon as I read the first few words. Thanks, Barb. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed. Yeah. In my life, I've loved them all. Yeah, that's a beautiful song. Thanks, Barb. So check those. Is anybody listening to any of the music we've talked about every week? Has anybody looked any of them up and listened to one or two or two? Cool. Awesome. That makes me feel good. I'm not just being ignored. And then,
Get enough of that at home, right?
actually, I think I might be hard to ignore, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure which. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about prayer and meditation. This is a very personal thing, prayer and meditation. My process for it is similar to what the Big Book says. I use the third step prayer to ground myself in my day before I go anywhere or do anything, because it's a prayer of surrender to me. I offer myself to Thee to build with me and do with me as You will. Relieve me of the bondage of self is my opportunity to be specific and ask God to help me with the fears I'm currently facing and to show me how to behave in the way that He would have me behave. And then, of course, the reason that we want to change and are willing to change is so that we can be of service to others. So I just thought I'd open it up, and if any of you have a process of prayer and meditation that works for you and you want to kind of offer that to the group, you could.
You had, when you were reading, I'm not sure which one it was, the Big Book or the other one. It might have been the 12 by 12. Petition.
Yeah.
Petition to God. What does that word mean?
A petition is an ask.
An act.
An ask.
Oh, an ask.
Yeah. We're
You
asking
ask.
something.
It's a question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just know one woman told me once I had these little phrases or whatever on pieces of paper I'd carry in my pocket, but to put it like the present, like I don't know, she read a lot out of the Bible and stuff, but like your will, not mine, be done. Your will is being done. You know, like it's happening, like it's real, like it's action.
Right.
Yeah, and I did that. I can't think of an example right now, but I'd put it like it was happening.
Good. I like that. Yeah, and I heard in a meeting once, and it kind of blew my mind. I'll never forget it. Somebody said, how do we know if what's happening is God's will? And then he said, we know it's God's will because it's happening. Right? So the message may be something needs to change here. Right? The message may be there's something wrong here. Right? Or the message could be, got it. Right? You guys you're golden, right? You're in love, you're effective, you're of service, no worries, right? But for us to experience both of those things is God's will. God's will is that we figure out who we are and what we do, right? We own that. And then we look for a way to become more the person He would have us be. So whatever is happening is beneficial to us, even if it's painful. So I like that idea. God's will is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfolding. Anybody else? Got any thoughts about that? You guys are quiet. I bet we have a room full of introverts. You're not an introvert?
Not
You're an
necessarily. I can
extrovert?
go,
Either way?
with, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But was your question about what kind of practices? do we
Yeah,
do?
what's helped you?
Well, what I like to do is, I love the meditation books, The Courage to Change and Hope for Today and other things, the 12 by 12 and those kinds of things. And just, I love going through the day, day by day and reading something like that in the morning. Oftentimes, though, I'm really busy, so I take the time throughout the day. If I find time, I, for some reason, just feel really connected in my car. And if I can pull off into a neighborhood, I've done that before, or to the park, and just have my books with me.
Cool.
That helps me. If I'm not right there in the morning, I can at least be there through the day, and I think that works for me, and that's okay.
That's cool, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why, but I connect with God a lot in the car, which seems kind of odd, and yet, I do.
Well,
I
there's
do
no
a-
one else there.
Yeah, and I do a lot of praying in the car. I often listen to music that kind of, like I said, will open my heart and kind of ground me in love, remind me of who I am, remind me of, what I'm supposed to do. So I love connecting with God in the car. I do it all the time. Cool. Any of the other people, Annie?
When I used to drive a lot, I kept little phrases right up by the speedometer. So when I'd glance up, I'd see this little phrase of something I was trying to, remind me to be kind to others, or
Yeah.
just, you reminded me of that when you said about the car.
Yeah. Well, and I think for those of us who drive around, it's a great opportunity. Usually, not always. Usually traffic doesn't bother me. What other people are doing doesn't bother me. I heard this wonderful Buddhist word, Maitri, which when translated means unconditional friendliness toward all. And in the car, that's the word that I grab if I'm irritated.
Do you know how to spell that?
M-I-T-R-I, Maitri. I'm pretty sure that's right. Unconditional friendliness toward all. Even the people, there's a couple of models of vehicles that I've noticed tend to be problematic. I probably should not be specific.
A little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, a little more aggressive, or a little bit, I don't know. There's this one model of car where this is so weird, you guys, but when I'm around those cars, I just get this feeling of self-righteousness from the car, like they're in charge of making sure everybody behaves themselves.
What car is it?
I'm not going to say.
I'm so curious.
Smart, because I might
It's
be
a
driving.
Prius.
Prius. Okay, yeah.
I just made 5 million enemies.
What do they do?
5 million
No, I
enemies.
don't have one.
It feels like they feel like they're in charge of making everybody behave. And what was funny, I was talking to Annie's husband, Richard, about this wacky theory I have about certain cars. And he goes, oh, yeah, in California, we call them road boulders. Because they slow everybody down and they try to kind of control the traffic. So make of that what you will. If you have a Prius, see me after this and I'll make amends, okay? I'll make direct amends to you for making fun of your car. One of the other statements in the big book that I really like is it says, we are quick to see the good in religion. We're quick to see the good in religion. And I like that because I think it can be very easy to be critical of religion and critical of religious people. And you know what, friends? Even that church that I belong to that was so hard on me, there are people in that church and it works for them, and that needs to be okay with me. That does not need to be something I'm critical of, or I'm contemptuous of, or I have disdain for. So I think it's worth mentioning that we're quick to see the good in religions. Candy, you look perplexed.
So, yeah, were you always like that? Or, is this something
With that religion?
or just is something that, pieces settled with you over
Yeah,
time?
such a good question. I was not okay with that religion
Okay.
for a while.
Because I just want to
Yeah,
belch
I was-
every time.
I was super critical resentful.
Yeah.
Put a bomb in their building.
Yeah.
Well, no, not that maybe.
No, middle finger.
Or my kids weren't allowed to swear when they were teenagers. So my son Ryan, when he'd get aggravated at people, he'd give them the big bird. He'd start going like this. What are you doing? I'm giving him the big bird. Wacky kid.
To say something about that.
That's creative.
Great idea.
Say that again, Mamie.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love that saying, take what you can and leave the rest.
Yeah.
Because if you look at religions all around us, they all have a little bit that possibly can benefit me, but I don't have to agree with everything.
Right.
And it has taken me a while in my recovery to really come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And really realize that seriously, it's okay for what other people find is working for them.
Yeah.
And every path
It's okay.
goes the same.
I have even come to recognize when I was in that church, it did some really good things for me. Like it was so structured, and me not so much. It was so structured and organized that it kind of gave me a system for navigating that in some ways actually worked for me, and it was not all bad. It just wasn't. I'm not going back.
Have you ever written your own personal prayers?
I have. Yeah.
Do you have any?
I don't have any with me. They're usually not something I write down. They just come out of my mind and heart. Mary?
How did you get to the point to be able to forgive them and yourself for being involved for as long as you were with the church?
I like the way you said that. Forgive them and forgive myself. It took a long time. It took a long time because there was some fallout from that was rough. And especially for my older children, there were some fallout for
Was it
for that
harder
that was
to
rough.
forgive them or to forgive you? Did you have an experience like that?
So I've heard it said that you have to love yourself before you can love others. And I think, to forgive is to love unconditionally, right? We let it all go. But for me, it's a lot messier than that. Like, I learn to love others while I'm learning to love me, and then I learn to love others, and then I love me a little more, and it's not
That's realistic.
it's a mess, kind of, really. But I did stop being critical of them, I'm going to say, a couple years after I left, or as critical. And I had to write a lot of inventories where something would happen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got so tired of this. I cannot tell you how many inventories I wrote on this. Something would happen, I'd write the resentment, and in the fear inventory, I am a bad mom. That was like, I'm a bad mom. And I'd be like, how many times am I going to have to look at this, But I had to look at it over and over and over again, and I will tell you, I am a very good mom. But I was frightened a lot. And frightened people do interesting and not so great things sometimes, and they make poor decisions because they're frightened. But I believe now that I'm a very good mom, and I might be one of the 10 best grandmas on the planet, potentially.
I'm 9. So did you find that after you left that faith, that religion, whatever, did you find that building your relationship with God was like more difficult?
No, which was so cool. So my first Al-Anon sponsor, like, I had a working knowledge of the Bible. I could, I'll go toe to toe with you on this one because I know that book, right? I had a working knowledge of the Bible that was wide and deep, right? There's a lot of good stuff in that book. There really is. So one of the things my first sponsor said to me was, "You are so lucky, Alice. because you already have a deep, deep faith. And I was like, yeah, I do. I do. I have always wanted to know God. Even when I was a little kid, man, I wanted to know God. And I started a poem this week called "It is a Wild Thing to be Loved by God." It's a wild thing to be loved by God. Holy cow, right? Holy cow. So I did not. My ideas about God had to change because I had a very arbitrary, condemning, capricious, judgmental, hard God. But man, you know, it unfolded. No, it wasn't hard. And I like that my sponsor said that to me. She never once criticized that religion. There's a good example for all of us. Neither did my other sponsor. He's like, I don't care what religion you're in. I'm like, really? All right, cool. So we're almost out of time. Wow. So the other thing I wanted to mention, and then I have one little poem for you. I have a poem I want to read you, is that idea of love and tolerance toward all. Right? The people that agree with us, the people that don't. The people that are like us, the people that are very different from us. Love and tolerance toward all. That's our code, right?
That's your ultimate goal, but
Yeah.
okay, I won't go there.
It's worth reaching out for. So I have read you some slightly dark poems, almost not noticeable. This is a happy poem from my childhood. And it's not surprisingly, maybe it's about my dad. It's called One Man, One Ring, One Tiger Circus. And I wanted to read it because I came to understand that that little girl was scared a lot, and she was also brave and fabulous, the little girl that I was. So this is called One Man, One Ring, One Tiger Circus. They practice in a field, close enough to the river that humidity rises like a current around summer bodies. Men with rifles, each side of the ring, guns not slung casually over shoulders, but held across bellies, one hand cradled around the trigger, one gripping the barrel. Metal bars of cage repeat the lines of cat, the cat more animal than I have ever smelled before. The tamer, slight, thin like cord, he paces like a clock around the beast. Old wooden chair, whip to crack air, straw crackles like fire. We edge in close. Kid silent as he puts his fist in the pit of mouth. We taste fetid breath, see feline muscles roll. The man chooses me from the crowd to enter. I look up the lines of my dad's body, his face a yes. Over the metal threshold, through steel doors, and into the ring. I place my palm on the rough valley between the tiger's shoulder bones. Heat from him rises into me, hair like wire. His heart thrums beneath my hand, golden head down. Through the bars that hold him, green grasses run the hill. Trees bend to the sky. Kids cheer as I step out. I press my face to my father's legs, then swung up on his shoulders where I can see across the open road a way home. So there you go. Okay, I think we're done. We'll come back next week for our final session. Invite your friends. We're bringing surprises. It's going to be awesome.